Welcome, everyone, to RB1 : a Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Fake Teams Podcast channel. I am your humble host, card-carrying member of the Taysom Hill is not a franchise quarterback club, and already ordered a Cam Newton Patriots jersey, Pete Rogers. And I am joined by all of the guys. We have resident old man, the Duck father, and recovering Texans fan, Clark Barnes, the working girl, Scotty Miller fanboy, and level 42.5 comic book nerd, Jordan Smith. And finally, the ginger, the beard is growing back, man, political wild card, and thinks your favorite team is run by donkeys, Nick Bodiford. Guys, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Pete.
Good, Pete. How you doing?
Good. I like to keep the listeners updated as to in what length and status Nick's beard is. So just so that everyone at home can keep track as to where Nick's beard is. I would say it's groomed right now. Wouldn't you say? It's not shaved. It's like manicured. Beardicured?
Beardicured. Yeah. Well, we should update the people. Looks like you got a haircut.
I did get a haircut. Finally, I had my first haircut in the COVID era, and it was much needed because my shaggy locks. I wish for many times I've attempted to like grow my hair out and to try to like rock a man bun because, that's how I do. But my hair, I've learned, grows in a mullet. So it doesn't grow like a man bun. It just grows really long in the back and then nowhere else in the top. So after 3.5 or 4 months of no haircut and wearing hats constantly because I just didn't want to deal with my hair, I did get a haircut, and it was not a moment too soon. I got it on Becca's and my anniversary, so I looked prim and proper to celebrate 2 years of happily wedded bliss.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. We also went to dinner. So 2 new COVID things knocked down one day. Got my hair cut, and we went out for dinner. We sat outside in the restaurant only had outdoor seating available. So, but yeah, so it was good. That was good. Clark, your missus is letting you on the pod today.
Celebrated the birthday today, and also went to a restaurant where they serve food. Yeah.
And how was that experience?
Thoughts. It was fine. We had a good time. And
good.
Lots of thoughts. We had a great time, and I'm happy to be on the pod. Please wear a mask from the door to the table.
Yes.
Because that makes total sense. Anyway, all right.
We did that. I will say we did that too. We walked in because we were like, literally, yeah. No, I understand the mild frustration there because we walked in and we're like, we're just going to be taking 2 steps outside, and we were promptly told that we needed to put masks on, which I understand, but also was like, okay, we're here for 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of these people who are making you guys keep your masks on at all times.
No, I respect.
Even at a restaurant where you're eating, makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
just punch it through the mask. As long as you're outside. Outside, it's okay.
Figure it out. Straw foods only.
We're now going to transfer to an all liquid diet and just have to slurp it. Well, I remember there was that video that went around on Twitter when Vegas first opened. And I don't know if you guys saw it. It was a guy sitting at a slot machine wearing a mask. And then he like takes a cigarette and like sneaks it under his mask so that he can get a couple puffs and then like exhale and just clouds of smoke come billowing out of his mask. It was pretty incredible. Anyways. All right. Well, we got some football on the docket. We're going to do our favorite pastime, which is wildly predicting and speculating, this time using over-unders. But first, the news. And oh boy, have we got some news for y'all. We'll start with the breaking news of Monday. Patrick Mahomes has signed the largest contract in professional sports history, a 10-year extension worth up to $503 million. $500 million is being sent Patrick Mahomes' way. It includes $477 million in guarantee mechanisms. This is straight from Schefter.
Right.
So
if you want to enjoy the English language being stretched to its limits, please read Pat Mahomes' agent describing how this is a $500 million deal. It's wonderful.
It will be $45 million per year. We were not surprised. I mean, obviously this deal was going to get done. A 10-year deal, though, that's a hell of a move to start us off. Nick, you look very perplexed.
Isn't the total 503 million?
Yeah. But
I
there's all kinds of weird incentives in
I
there.
don't
And
know. We still are waiting, in my opinion. This is like Kaepernick's deal, I imagine, where there's guaranteed mechanisms. Yes, we call those team options sometimes. So I'm curious what the actual language of the contract is going to be. I'm seeing on Twitter like 112 million is actually guaranteed. We shall see. Good for the Chiefs. I mean, this is a contract, regardless of the language, that I feel is going to be fulfilled. So $45 million a year for Patrick Mahomes seems like a bargain.
Yeah, I think everybody won.
I see worth up to 503 million. So I think there's some goofy language to, I don't know, not fully guarantee, but I mean, he's Patrick Mahomes. So I would bet on myself if I were him to get up to that number.
When you hear a new phrase in contracts, that means that agent is working overtime. Guarantee mechanisms. Good job.
Just to poke some bears here, do you guys think that they included any mask clauses?
Oh, I hope so.
I bet you they did.
It does include an injury guarantee, reportedly up to 140 million. So I don't know if that, like, injury or illness, if that includes it. That's making it pretty good right there.
You guys want to hear other notable NFL contracts that are double-digit years and extensions? Because they're all great. This is all setting up for Patrick Mahomes to finish his career as a Kansas City Chief. Donovan McNabb signed a 12-year deal with the Eagles in 2002. Brett Favre signed a, quote, lifetime contract with the Packers in 2001. Drew Bledsoe signed a 10-year deal with the Patriots in 2001. And Michael Vick signed a 10-year deal with the Falcons in 2004. So there's great precedent for Patrick Mahomes to finish his contract out as a Kansas City Chief.
How happy is Dak Prescott?
Dak Prescott. Jerry Jones. This is going to be has to go down as one of the greatest quarterback negotiation blunder or contract blunders is Jerry Jones not signing Dak Prescott when Dak Prescott was like, pay me $35 million a year. Jerry should have been like, yes, done, deal, done. Let's get it out of the way before Patrick Mahomes gets paid $45 million a year. And now that's the new market set.
That's what they're.
You wanted 35 a year.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You wanted 35 a year. God.
What a goofy ass plan. So Jerry Jones. So they add CeeDee Lamb. And the defense is just going to be kind of whatever. And
Dak Prescott's set up to have a career year, and then at the end he's going to be like, "So about this 10-year, $45 million deal that Patrick Mahomes got," and Jerry's going to be like, "Shit, well that was a big mistake on my part."
He already signed his tender too, so I mean they can obviously still work something out in season, but Dak Prescott is already looking at that number yeah, we got to get at least closer to that range.
Yeah. Which by signing his tenure, Dak's getting paid $32 million a year anyway. So which also is just hilarious to me that the Cowboys were like, we won't pay you 35, but 32 we're okay with. Anyways, blunders all over the place. I have to give a shout out to a friend of the podcast, friend of a friend of the podcast, Kevin Clark on The Ringer, who tweeted out Sean Payton's fuming that he doesn't have the cap room to give this deal to Taysom Hill, which I just thought was a truly incredible tweet as someone who is firmly aboard that Taysom Hill is not a franchise quarterback. I would have loved if Sean Payton had broken the Saints cap in order to sign him to some ridiculous mega deal.
We should get the show going here, but is the Taysom Hill bandwagon? Is that really that big? Is it?
John Payton's on
smaller? Well, he's not. He signed into a 1-year deal for $16 million.
Yeah. He's not on any bandwagon. He's NFL players and franchises show us who they are when they spend their money. They didn't spend any money on him, so
it's true. It's true. We'll see next year when he gets signed to a 10-year extension worth.
That's true. I will eat crow figuratively. If that happens.
No, it's got to be live on the show. We'll find a crow for you, D. Clark. Also in the news, it has finally come. It broke at the end of last week, but after years of us as a podcast pestering, as the general people who were on the right side of history pestering, Washington Racial Slurs are finally taking into consideration the notion of changing their name which is a long time overdue. FedEx and Nike both. FedEx was threatening to pull funding from Washington, which is obviously huge since they play at FedEx Stadium. And Nike took all of Washington's paraphernalia off of their website. I believe it was Friday that they removed, so you couldn't buy anything Washington Racial Slurs. All
amazing
of that
those companies move so quickly to correct their mistakes that they've been making for the past several years. Let's applaud them for sponsoring this team for decades or a very long time. I give no credit to either of those things. They were happy to make money, and then as soon as it became not an awesome way to make money, they're like, "Oh crap, we changed our mind, guys. Turns out Redskins is racist. Sorry, we didn't know until just now."
The credit goes to us, the people, who forced them into that. Like I'm actually really happy as someone who has been like a really big advocate for this for a long time. Since this first came out like 5 or 6 years ago. They had a Super Bowl ad that they ran, and I can't remember which Super Bowl ad it was. But anyways, I take a lot of enjoyment and joy coming out of the fact that like this was something that a lot of people were really pushing towards. And yes, I agree with you, Clark, that FedEx and Nike shouldn't be applauded too loudly because of the fact that now they suddenly realize that this is offensive. But putting the pressure on Dan Snyder, and no changes have been made. They are internally discussing it. So it could be a very Dan Snyder move to come out and be like, actually, you know what? No, fuck you guys. It's okay.
Well, let's not bury the lead here. RB1 podcast own Pete Rogers getting some pub in the from CNN regarding his fantastic Washington Red Tails design. So, Pete, it's been great having you on the pod. I'm gonna miss you when you're big time.
When I'm out of here. It was an exciting weekend for me on that front. My Twitter was melting the entire weekend, and it was weird seeing my name cropping up in CNN, and I think it was also Fox Sports wrote an article.
People need to know too that design that you did, well, not only fantastic, but that you did that before this talk came up. So it wasn't in response to, you were proactive in that. I think they should just hire you outright. Graphics, media, image consultant, just help them rebrand.
They need it. I would welcome it. If you're listening to the show, Washington, Dan Snyder, I humbly accept whatever you're willing to offer.
So first off, I had no idea this was happening. So that's awesome, Pete. Congratulations. I do want to point out that I would have personal reservations about going to work for Dan Snyder because he's an asshole.
Fair.
But to Clark's point, yeah, fuck both of these companies. They made a shit ton of money, never taking a stand until public pressure caved because of mass protests across the country on an associated topic. So, I give them no applause. I don't think that they deserve any credit at all. And then I've forgotten the main point that I was going to make. So
I think got too excited.
Flow through you.
Yeah, screw them. And and just that they have not actually said they're going to change.
Yeah,
right. Like
they're doing
an
internal investigation.
Yeah, we're going to think about it. That's it. So if Snyder, if he is able to like break from the NFL and get like Reebok to start printing the jerseys or something like that, he's not gonna. He makes his children's schoolmates' parents refer to him as Mr. Snyder. Like other parents, he tells them to call him. They go, "Hi, Dan," and he says, "It's Mr. Snyder." So. This is a terrible, terrible person.
Yeah.
He would love nothing more than to not change the name.
Oh, that's kind of a power move, though. Like, you got to be stronger to be like, "No, Dan, I'll just call you nothing." But I like his chutzpah. Like, that's the first good thing about Dan Snyder that I've learned. I like that.
And he shows no respect to anybody.
Clark, do you make all your ducks address you as Mr. Barnes?
I mean, from here on out.
Do you have Barnes barn puns? Do they live in a barn?
Oh, I feel like
so. I live in the country now, and I really like it. So I want to call my ranch when I get older the Bar NS Ranch. So that's as punny as it gets, I think.
I love it.
How
about Patrick Mahomes, eh? Woo, big contract.
How about that money?
Yeah. Also,
could
Deshaun
buy that
Watson
ranch for you.
is also waiting to get paid. This makes the Texans look bad, and I think the Eagles did this with Carson Wentz a few years ago. They were the first movers on the class to get the quarterback, and that just always looks like a great move. Even though the Carson Wentz deal has been tough because Carson Wentz has been injured, it still looks great compared to the Jared Goff deal and things like that. So teams that move first, while it's a big number with a lot of weird language associated with it. And other teams would gladly pay $45 million, I think, for Dak Prescott or Deshaun Watson. So kudos to the Chiefs for being that first mover and locking up, a great crop of quarterbacks. Mahomes could potentially be the best one. So good move by them.
Yeah, you make a great point as we wrap up the news about Carson Wentz and how it's just like it pays. I know teams, it pays to be the first to sign your player at a position that's going to get paid a lot of money. If you are the first to sign your quarterback, then you don't have to deal with every other quarterback in that class getting more money. You now set the market. And within a year, the contract that your quarterback just signed will look like a deal. There you go. There was the news. So now we are going to wildly predict things. I have, what do I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different over-unders involving different players for the 2020 football season. These are all guys who I think are intriguing options in fantasy, players who I feel like people are a little bit all over the map on in terms of, some have them really high, some have them low. What are the expectations we have for these players? So we are going to do that. These are not gambling books, that's what they're called, describe as over-unders. These are just my own over-unders. And so we'll keep track of what everyone says, and we'll see who was right and who was wrong ultimately. But now that I've finished that whole preamble and you know what's coming, you have to first sit through an ad break. Ha! All right, we're back, and we're going to start with the first over-under. And we will go, Jordan, why don't you give us your first thoughts on this? Tom Brady. He is currently going as the QB 11 according to Fantasy Pros' consensus ADP rankings. Over under 33.5 passing touchdowns this year.
Over under 33.5. Let's see. If Jameis Winston can sniff 50, I would go over for 33.5 on Tom Brady. Tom Brady is older, yes, but he comes with a wealth of experience. And I think a lot of people would be hoping for that 33 over as well. So I'm going over.
Clark, what are your thoughts?
I think that's a good number. I'm going to try to not say that after every number.
So unless there's one that's really bad and you're just going to be like, no, Pete, that was a terrible number. This is such an easy one.
Someone else being asked first affords me the luxury of quickly looking up how many times has Tom Brady thrown for 33, 34 touchdowns in his career. And, talking about stuff like that before the season, you said 33. I was like, oh, way over. But then you look at his stats, and Brady's had a really good career, and he's only done it a few times. 33 is a lot, but I do think that they're going to be moving the ball. Tampa Bay's defense was sneaky good, as brought to you by Jordan last year. They're a pretty good team, except for when the quarterback throws the ball to the opposing squad. So I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go over that. I'm enthusiastic.
Nicholas, are you going to play your favorite role as the discerner or whatever the word is?
Yeah, this is a really good one. Just looking at last year's stats, there were only 2 guys who went over 33, or one of them was 33. It's so interesting. So, I mean, the defense is going to give them short fields. I'm sure that they will pass when they're in close. But yeah, let's do it. Let's go over.
I think
15 for Gronk. Right.
Exactly.
So,
naturally. So you got it already halfway there.
Yeah.
This is one of the things as a Patriots fan who has watched Tom Brady throughout his entire career. It's something that I feel like isn't necessarily, and Clark, you brought it up when you looked at his stats. Brady, while being a very productive quarterback, isn't always the best fantasy quarterback because he doesn't often throw above 30 touchdowns. Like, he's normally in that high 20 range, and he puts up some yardages on really good seasons, but it's not as if he puts up the most absurd stats. It's not except for the one year, obviously, with Randy Moss where he put up 50 touchdowns. So it'll be really interesting to see what 43-year-old Brady does in Tampa with a litany of weapons. Like, there is potential easily for him to throw upwards of 33 touchdowns with Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin, with Gronk, with OJ Howard, with Cameron Brate, with Keyshawn Vaughn, who I'm going to hype up until my dying days. So it's curious to see where you guys. Everyone's falling on the over. I think that is a pretty good place to be. And at quarterback 11, like 33 plus touchdowns is going to automatically rocket you as a pretty high fantasy quarterback, given the fact that if you look at QBs this year, like we said, only 3 through, Lamar had 36 and I think Jameis had 33. So we are saying that Brady will be better than Jameis.
This one's so tough because the only thing is that I don't think that there will be very many game scripts where they're going to need to throw a lot. So the caveat is, I think if this happens, which, I mean, maybe I'm just doing this because I think it'd be fun to root for it, I think he'll kind of buck regression and have a really middling yardage total. Because I think that they're just going to have those short fields when they get in close. Like, Brady's not going to go, yeah, let's hand it to Ronald Jones, right?
Yeah.
He's just going to toss it to one of the 6'5" guys.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Next over under, Clark, we'll start with you here. Le'Veon Bell's ADP, I've consistently been seeing getting pushed down and down and down and down. He's currently the RB18 in PPR, scoring RB27 in standard. Again, this is Fantasy Pros consensus ADP, so don't get at me. I wanted to see if I'm just too high on him or if other people are too low on him. So, Clark, over under 1,550.5 total yards from scrimmage for Le'Veon Bell this year.
I'm going to say under. I think Gase has shown us who he is, and he has managed to make some apparently really good players look awful. I think Le'Veon Bell is still good. I've actually gone back and watched a lot of crummy teams' games from last year because this is always a blind spot for me of like the Lions. Like, turns out the Lions were pretty good last year before Matt Stafford got hurt, and he should be back. And I've gone back and watched the Jets. Le'Veon Bell's still really good at playing running back, but they just look awful. They don't look like they know what they're doing, and I don't see any reason that that's going to change in year 3 with Gase. So, man, I hate it, but I'm gonna go under.
Nick, what about you?
I don't even remember the yardage total, but I'm going under.
It was 5 yards, Nick. It was 5 yards. Do you want to go under 5 yards?
So, I mean, per touch, yeah. Gase, Clark said everything really well. Adam Gase perennially puts out the top or worst or bottom 5 offense in the league. He brought in Frank Gore, and I know that rightfully people are a little bit skeptical, but really, if there is any team that Gore could have landed with, or this is the best team he could have landed with for who will maximize his touches. Gase loved him, right? He kept us from seeing what Kenyan Drake could have been in the passing game by just rolling Gore out there. And I don't think Gore is going to be the bell cow, but I think that he's going to get 8 to 10 touches per game. And if we are talking about, you said 1,500 yards from scrimmage, I think Frank Gore will get enough work that he prevents Bell from getting a truly elite workload and producing a truly elite yardage total. And actually, fortuitously, if you want to look through the quagmire that is my Twitter feed, I had a back and forth with Jeff Ratcliffe about this last week from Pro Football Focus. He was really high on him. I was really low. I don't think it ever really got settled, but I am way the hell out on Le'Veon Bell this year, and it's sad. I don't want to be.
Final thoughts, Jordan.
I'm kind of in Clark's camp as far as like Le'Veon Bell looking pretty good last year, despite being on a pretty bad team. But I think just continually being on this Jets team is going to hold his value back. Getting up to 1,500 total yards he would have to outperform last season, which I think is going to be pretty difficult to do. He should get fingers crossed he gets a full season of Sam Darnold behind center, but that offensive line is once again a little bit reworked. They're probably going to be starting a rookie at one of the tackle positions, and I just don't really see him outperforming last year's total by like 300 scrimmage yards. That might be a little tough.
Yeah, I will be the discerning voice here. I maybe it's just I am fully in on Le'Veon Bell having a bounce back year for as much as he can in Adam Gase's offense, and he's going at such a cheap price that I think I'm going to probably have him in a lot of places. I think that last year was not only his first year with the Jets and Adam Gase, it was also his first year back playing football after sitting out a year. And so I do think that there's still a little rust that needed to be worn off. I also hate Adam Gase. I also don't want to trust I don't want to rely on him in order to give me fantasy production. But I think Le'Veon Bell is too talented a running back to, unless Nick is right and Adam Gase is just a goddamn asshole and has Frank Gore, getting 150 plus carries. I think Le'Veon Bell has the talent to bounce back to closer to what we've seen with Pittsburgh in terms of on-field production.
Yeah, Mike Tolbert thinks Frank Gore is ruining fantasy football.
And that's saying something.
Was it Adam Gase or the former GM of the Jets who said they didn't really want Le'Veon Bell? It was Gase.
It was
right?
Adam Gase.
It was Gase.
Yeah.
I mean, he might be an a-hole and just decide to run Le'Veon Bell 30 times a game just to spite him, basically.
And rumors have come out, too, that if the Jets do open the season looking like absolute ass, they're going to trade Le'Veon Bell, which could just open up this whole thing that I could win the under or win the over. But, relying on a trade is never what you want. Yeah, or it could absolutely just
learn a new offense, that sort of thing.
If you don't brush your teeth, I'll give you more ice cream. That's the kind of threat that we've got going on there.
Yeah. All right, third over under. The top two rookie wide receivers, I always like looking or getting a sense of what people feel like is realistic expectations for rookie wideouts, because we get really hyped about them at the draft, and especially this class of rookies was, phenomenal rookie wide receivers. But rarely do we ultimately see guys come in and ball out to the extreme. So the top two rookie wide receivers going in fantasy drafts are Jerry Jeudy going wide receiver 38 and CeeDee Lamb going wide receiver 40 in PPR. Nick, starting with you, over under 999.5 receiving yards. Will either of them be a 1,000-yard receiver?
No.
Taking the under.
Yeah, you have to contend with in Denver. Cortland Sutton has a stranglehold on it. They just brought in Melvin Gordon, whose prowess is pass catching. Another year developed for Noah Fant. Drew Lock is still young, and I said what I've liked, what I've seen from him insofar as he'll just launch it to Cortland Sutton, but he hasn't really done a whole lot outside of that. It's going to be more of a ball control, low volume offense. And then as far as Dallas goes, Amari Cooper is an outstanding player. Michael Gallup is the real dude. He's like the next Deshaun Jackson kind of a guy. Jarwin is there. It depends, assuming Kellen Moore will retain rights to play calling. Ezekiel Elliott could see 70 targets. I just don't think there's going to be enough for CeeDee Lamb to hit that 1,000-yard mark. Now, that doesn't mean that he couldn't do 800 yards and 8 TDs kind of a thing. And of course, if Gallup or Cooper misses any extended period of time, then this will be the over. I think he will absolutely hit the over. But just as of now, no, I don't think either of them will.
Jordan, what about you?
Can you bounce to Clark? Because I think I might actually have some stats on.
Ooh, Jordan, getting details from stats and information.
Yeah, I don't have a long preamble for you, Jordan, but I'll try to stretch it out. I think both of these wide receivers are fantastic, but they are rookies and they are going to teams who are not in desperate need of wide. Well, that's not true. Jeudy, I think, is going to be amazing, but I am not sure that Drew Lock is. And why would you throw it to him when you can hand the ball to Melvin Gordon and make yourself look smart for signing Melvin Gordon for a lot of money? CeeDee Lamb, I also think that he's fantastic, but why would you force the ball to him when you already have three really solid veterans and some tight end who may come up for you? So this is not indictment of these rookies' talents. It's just that's a lot of yards for a rookie, and their teams don't need it.
Yeah, I will give Jordan more time by saying I am also taking the under. I think that it's really easy to get hyped for what rookie wide receivers can do. And I think on the field, there will be plenty of highlight plays that we see from these two guys. But I think if you're looking for, like, if you're expecting, like a Devontae Parker is a guy who I think is maybe the kind of season that people might be expecting from these guys, where he's not one of the big stud receivers. He kind of he builds his role and then like emerges with it and really thrives and gets you a solid, 1,200 yards and double-digit touchdowns. If that's what your expectations are for these receivers, it ain't happening.
Yeah, I also am going to take the under. So I found what I was looking for. This is something that I put together a couple of weeks ago. Of 31 receivers taken in the first round since 2010, AJ Green, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, and Amari Cooper had 1,000 yards in their first season. So that is just 4 guys. So while it's very possible that these guys could go over 1,000, that's like a pretty small percentage, and you have to assume one of these guys is the next Odell or Amari Cooper, which one of these receivers that we're talking about is playing on the same team as Amari Cooper. So that might be a little bit of a hold back. CeeDee Lamb being likely the third option, at least to start, holds him back a little bit. Again, we're not entirely sure Drew Lock is good. I think Jerry Jeudy's ceiling for his first year is like around the Calvin Ridley range. Both Alabama guys who are pretty good route runners. But Calvin Ridley got to like the mid 800s in his first season, which, I mean, good rookie season. Like, that's a damn good rookie season, but 1,000 yards might be a little bit too rich for me.
Quick shout out to Clark for telling me over Slack that the word I'm looking for is dissenting. Thank you. All right. Fourth over under that we're going to do. Kenyan Drake was on pace for 1,286 yards and 16 touchdowns if he had played all 16 games with the Cardinals. People are drafting him as the RB10 in PPR and kind of expecting similar numbers this year. Maybe not the 16 touchdowns, but certainly the rushing yards. Jordan, we'll start with you. Over under 1,300.5 rushing yards for Drake this year in his first full season with the Cardinals.
I don't know. I kind of want to go under because of I think they might have caught lightning in a bottle last year a little bit with Drake. And I also think Chase Edmonds is still a pretty good option. So I think Chase Edmonds should still get some carries in that offense, which might hold Drake back a little bit. I don't think the Cardinals offensive line got extraordinarily better with their draft either. That can help Drake, but I'm on the fence about it. I want to say over, but I think I'm just being negative and saying under.
Nick, what do you think?
So just to be clear, you said his rushing yard total at 1,300?
Yes, sir. Yeah, rushing.
So they were, is off the top of my head, so don't quote me, I believe they were the number 2 rushing offense in DVOA last year. And this is another one of those instances, actually quite different than what I thought with Kevin Stefanski, which, by the way, we had a little back and forth, I think, about on Twitter about that this week, Pete, where, anyway, Stefanski showed that he is actually analytically informed. He doesn't just – anyway, Kingsbury, we don't know if he actually, like, studies the numbers and understands why what he does works, but it does. That total is just – that's super steep. There was only 4 players last year who crossed the 1,300 rushing yard line. Yeah, let's do it, though. He'll do it. Yeah, going over.
Ooh, Nick. Saucy. Clark, what about you?
Yeah, this is I always have a hard time with these situations. I was out on Damian Williams last year in Kansas City, and that only really ended up being right because he was injured. You go back and watch the Cardinals games, and sometimes they look awful and nothing that they do works. And then the next week against a good opponent, this is not, they play well against bad teams and play poorly against good teams. Kenyan Drake is running through gaping holes and no one is near him, and he's just eating up yards and scoring touchdowns. So what Kingsbury is doing in Arizona works sometimes, and that was his first year with a very poor team. And so I feel like they are on to something. Of course, that's what we thought with Chip Kelly too. So I don't know. That's where I'm on the fence. I'm going to say over. Let's have some fun. 1,300 yards for Kenyan Drake, over. Going as the RB10, I mean, that's the kind of chance I'll take and regret. But Cardinals are going to be – I feel like the Cardinals are going to score a lot this year.
I think the Cardinals have a very good chance of being like a top 5 offense in pretty much every realm that you can possibly imagine. I'm going to take the under, and it's not because I don't have faith in this offense. It's more of I just think that I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of a pass, like this passing attack is what really lights it up. Obviously, with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins and just with Kyler Murray being another year in the league, that the passing game is what's going to get emphasized. But yeah, as a kind of a tag-along question, Clark, you already kind of mentioned it. Do you guys feel Nick and Jordan like the RB10 is where you'd be comfortable taking Drake? For me, that seems high. Like, I don't know if I would necessarily be willing to do that, just given the fact that we only saw whatever it's like 8 games of him in Arizona. And yes, those 8 games were amazing, but are we sure that that's going to be a full 16 game kind of a workload?
Yeah. I mean, he is, and this is anecdotal, so take it with grains of salt, but him being interviewed, I think it was like with Roto World, where he's talking about how Kyler Murray he calls the play and then he'll turn to Drake and tell him what he has to do, like while they're coming out of the huddle kind of a thing. First year of a new head coach, a new quarterback, a new system. And he then comes into that situation, performs the way he did on half of the season. And we've talked about him a lot. I think he's a good pass catching back. He's kind of just like a blown up pass catching back. And I don't think you have to be better than that to excel in this offense.
He is fine. Like,
yep.
He's not a specimen, but opportunity.
But that offense pushes him into top 10 territory. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think Drake is pretty explosive.
I think he's average.
If he's RB10 and, maybe I'm picking at the back end of the draft and he's like the second running back I'm able to grab, I'm already really excited about my draft.
Sure.
Like, if I already have 2 and he's my RB2, I'm really excited. If he's the first running back I grab, I'm still good with it. Like, I'm still good with it just for the totality of what that offense could be. With Kyler Murray in his second year, he'll be better. DeAndre Hopkins, that sort of thing. I'd be good with it.
Oh, okay. Good to know. All right. Our final over-under. This is especially dedicated to one Clark Barnes. And we'll start with you, Clark. Over-under Gronk touchdowns, 5.5.
Oh, over. That's a layup.
You say that, but let's look at Gronk's history. I know Nick gave me.
I don't need to look at stats. I got it right here, pointing to my heart.
Pointing to your heart.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Let's look at Gronk's history.
Well, I mean, Gronk's is the biggest thing is that's going to be a hindrance is injury, obviously. But if you look, I mean, 2016 he had 3 touchdowns. Last year he had 3, or 2018 I should say, he had 3 touchdowns. And he hasn't had double-digit touchdowns since 2015. So, given all the people that need to eat on that offense, are we certain that he's putting forward a big scoring touchdown? Who knows?
Yes, because there's a difference between double-digit touchdowns and going over 5.5. We've talked a lot about this season with like a COVID off season, meaning no off season. On-field rapport is going to be extremely strong or extremely important in fantasy drafts. And the only guy that Brady has played with is Gronk. And he could have like a Brandon Jacobs circa like 2006 type of season, but just for rushing like 300 yards and 10 touchdowns kind of, they just get into the red zone and he just like lobs passes to him. I don't think it'll be that. I think it'll probably be like 408 touchdowns, but yeah, no, over 5.5 for sure.
Is this the last over under?
This is the last one.
Okay. You know what? I'll go over. Just for the fact of like, again, like with the rapport thing, it could be very important, especially with like the first month of the season. It usually is for a regular off season, but with a trippy off season like this, it could be 6 weeks, 2 months before teams really start to connect and roll in the way that they want to. So Gronk could really just have multiple like double-digit touchdown games. Like he could just come out with 15 yards receiving, like get 2 touchdowns out of that, or 3 touchdowns. That's in the realm of possibility. So over the course of a long season, with Tom Brady back as his quarterback, I can go over 5.5.
Okay, since there was so much disdain in Jordan's voice about this being the last over-under, I quickly have thrown together one more. And we'll make it quick. But this was when I was brainstorming initially, and I don't know exactly what number I want to pick with, but we'll go with a guy who I have at least talked a bit about it on this show as someone who maybe I'm not as excited about going into a year following a breakout year for him, is Darren Waller, who I think is now going to be dealing with a little more competition in that passing game. Still something that he could still be very productive, but as a tight end, over under, and we'll start with you, Jordan, because you are the one who forced me to do this on the fly. Over under, let's say 80.5 receptions for Darren Waller in 2020.
How many did he get last year?
He had 90 receptions on 117 targets last year.
Oh, that's a pretty good catch rate. I'll still go over though. I don't think that there's a whole lot of difference there between like the passing options for the Raiders. That's what I'm looking for. The Raiders this year compared to last year. Yes, they added Henry Ruggs, but Henry Ruggs is a rookie. They added Brian Edwards, but he is also a rookie. They added Jason Witten, but he is the furthest from being a rookie on that team. So I could see him getting the same kind of looks and the same kind of workload, and another year being able to connect with Derek Carr. Should Derek Carr be able to hang on to that starting position, I could see him going a little bit over.
Clark, what are your thoughts?
This one's tough because I think that he was a winner of circumstance. Was the opposite of a victim of circumstance. He was the only game in town.
Profiteered.
But he's still playing for the same team who didn't really change the landscape. He's still playing for a quarterback who seems physically unable of convincing himself to throw the ball downfield. That's a lot of receptions. I'm taking the under. I hope that this doesn't happen because this is a young man's career, and I hope that he has a long, successful career, but this just has like one-hit wonder written all over it.
Nick, wrap us up.
Well, yeah, so if we're just looking at the guys who were in the 80s for catches last year at tight end, we're talking about like Ertz was at 88, Kittle was at 85. I think they spent a first-round pick on a wide receiver who has excelled both downfield and at the line of scrimmage. I think 80 is a good number to hope for from Waller, and I think that something like 75 is a lot more realistic. Just because I think that it's not hard to imagine that Henry Ruggs, takes 10 to 15 catches off of Waller's workload. So I'll go under.
Cool. All right. Well, there you go. And we will, I've got them all written down. I'm going to tuck them away for the end of the year, if there is a year, and we can reflect back and see how right I was about Le'Veon Bell and how wrong everyone else was about him. Make sure you subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. We are there. Fake Teams Podcast channel is where you find us. If you have any fantasy questions that you want us to answer on the show, drop them in the comments, leave a review, and we'll make sure to answer them, or tweet them at us at RB1 Podcast. You can follow myself at Pete M. Rogers. Follow Clark at NFL Clark, Jordan at Jordan_Smith27, and Nicholas at Ginger__ Nick without a K. We will be back at you next week. Until then, peace.